Transylvania has become a popular setting in fiction, but despite its popularity, most people have no idea how this place actually looks, given that its portrayal in Western books, movies and video games is more like a grotesque parody of our actual culture. However, this region is full of wonders, thanks to its stunning nature and wildlife, the diversity in architecture both in urban and rural areas, and of course the colorful culture, combining practices of multiple ethnic groups. So today we're gonna take a look at some of our most interesting traditions, and hopefully I'll be able to create a more realistic image of Transylvania in your mind. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Anna and I make videos about the culture, history, literature and gaming related topics of Central and Eastern Europe because I feel like there's not enough content about it online. So if you're into that, please consider subscribing. In today's video, I'm gonna show you a few interesting elements of Transylvania's culture, mainly some of our unusual customs specific to this area. But before we jump into that, I'm gonna need to ask you a favor. YouTube seems to have a personal vendetta against my channel. They keep deleting my views, automatically unsubscribing some of my viewers, and overall refuse to recommend my videos. So if you want to keep this channel alive, please click that subscribe button, like and share this video, and of course comment something nice to keep the YouTube algorithm engaged. Thank you! So without further ado, let's dissect this topic. Everything about Transylvania is debated, not just its history but its location as well. Some people consider Transylvania to be the 9 central counties of Romania, and others say it's the entire northwest side of the country. Given that my video mostly focuses on culture rather than politics, I will use this definition, simply because Banatian and Maramureșan cultures are vastly different from the Transylvanian ones. This region gave birth to many controversies, heated debates and ethnic conflicts due to our messy history, which I will not mention in this video because whenever I do, my viewers be like,
"Ce crezi că faci? Te fac să taci."
So we're gonna skip that today. The uniqueness of Transylvania's culture stems from its ethnically and religiously diverse population, the most significant groups being Romanians, Hungarians, settlers, Saxons and Romanis, not to be confused with Romanians. This cultural mixture has influenced many of our traditions, but despite that, each group has its own unique set of practices too. Most of our customs are also a mixture of pagan and Christian practices, therefore we have traditions involving fertility rituals or scaring away evil spirits performed on Christian holidays. Others, however, mainly revolve around partying and drinking because at the end of the day, Transylvania is part of a Balkan country and drinking and partying are the only things us Balkanites are truly passionate about. Our most intriguing cultural practices are mainly kept alive in rural areas, but some of them are celebrated in the bigger cities too. The older generation is especially clinging to them and they try to make sure that we partake in these practices.
Acum ăștia se duc la discotecă, prinde țigarea și ce fac? Nu făcea nimica.
With that said, let's check out some of the customs which are specific to different regions of Transylvania, about which most of you probably never heard of, and believe it or not, none of them are related to vampires. Vutia Feciorior is a winter tradition that dates back to the 1600s and is still alive in the villages of Alba County, especially in the Țara Secașilor area, and it involves a very special and charming way of inviting the girls of the village to the Christmas party. According to ethnographers, this custom used to start on the first Sunday of the Nativity Fast, when the younger men and boys of the village got together and chose a leader. Then they divided the responsibilities of organizing the main event. The second step was usually executed around St. Nicholas's Day, when the boys went from house to house to gather wine in a huge barrel, which was carried around in a cart pulled by oxen. On the afternoon of Christmas Eve, the lads went from house to house to sing Christmas carols, and the villagers rewarded them with money, which was collected by the leader and used for organizing the Christmas ball. The cornerstone of this custom took place on the second or third day of Christmas, depending on the village, when the boys dressed up in traditional ceremonial clothes, its most iconic piece being a hat decorated with colorful flowers and peacock feathers, then went through the village accompanied by musicians and dancers to visit the house of every unmarried young woman and ask the permission of their parents to take them to the party. Because yes, gentlemen, that's the proper way of asking a girl out. You gotta show up at her house with folk musicians instead of sending dick pics. Anyways, the youth of the village then marched together to the location of the ball and partied until the next morning, where they served pastries and sweets prepared by the girls, and of course the wine which was collected earlier. The organizers weren't allowed to go home before sunrise, and those who broke the tradition got punished and playfully shamed in front of the whole village. Although nowadays people perform a more simplified version of this custom, the main event, which is the invitation of the girls, is still practiced the same way as back in the old days, and it has become such an iconic part of this area's culture that even some members of the diaspora return to their home village to partake in this celebration. Alba is a place that I rarely ever hear about despite their interesting traditions, but this custom shows that the good people of Alba are willing to walk the extra mile for a good party. Szüreti Bál, aka the Wine Harvest Ball, is mostly organized in Hungarian villages, which is an autumn celebration following the harvest period, usually at the end of September or the beginning of October. The main actors of this event are called csőszök, meaning haywards, whose role used to be to oversee and guard the fields, orchards and gardens. In the context of this celebration, their job is to walk or ride around the nearby villages wearing traditional clothes and invite people to the ceremony. Though nowadays in some villages they just put up posters. The main event starts with a dance known as csősz dance, then the haywards kick off the ball with some folk dance. The ballroom is decorated with grapes, and according to tradition, the invitees must try to steal them, because we live in Romania and we obviously gotta live up to the stereotypes.
Can I take it your wallet? Can I take it your phone? I don't know what we have inside in the pocket. Very easy.
The role of the haywards is to protect the grapes, and those who get caught stealing have to pay a little fine. Aside from all the singing, dancing and of course drinking, they also organize a lottery where people can win some grapes and wine. At the end of the party, they auction away the main decoration of the ballroom, which is a huge grape crown containing a few bottles of wine. Our next tradition dates back to the Middle Ages, and it was organized in multiple locations of Mureș County and Sibiu, including in one of the most beautiful cities of Transylvania, Sighișoara, which is a medieval Saxon city known as Székesbrich. Carnivalul lolelor or Fuga lolelor is a reenactment of an old Germanic custom called Fasching. The main actors of this tradition are known as urzeln or lole in Romanian, who are dressed in some colorful costumes and masks, and they stroll through the streets with drums, whips and cowbells producing loud noises. This is supposed to scare away the evil spirit before Ash Wednesday, so people can enter the Easter fast in peace, and of course people need an excuse to get drunk one last time before the fast. The urzeln also carry around a wooden chest known as laden for dragon, which has a pretty interesting history. This tradition originates from the 12th century, when Transylvania was often raided by Tatars, and the role of the urzeln was actually to protect the chest filled with important documents and valuables from the raiders, but it was carried from one town or city to the other. After the Tatar invasions ended, this tradition got mixed up with the Christian celebrations, and it was kept alive in the surrounding villages for centuries. After the march, the organizers served gingerbread, donuts and tea, and the bystanders can also enjoy some folk music and dances. There's a different variation of this in Prejmér, which is in Brașov County, where they organize a pancake festival as well, European pancakes, not American ones, including a pancake making contest and a parade including a marching band, horse riders and people dressed as various characters. And since Transylvania's Germanic population has decreased in recent decades, I'm glad to see that their traditions are still kept alive. Some villages of Cluj County have a very unique and interesting Pentecost custom that many people don't know about. On this day, after the Pentecost ceremony is done at church, the people of the village get together and give an ox or a pair of oxen a special makeover, decorating their horns with flowers, ribbons, and leaves. This tradition dates back to pre-Christian times, which was performed to bring fertility and luck in agriculture. The execution of this custom starts 3 days prior to the main event, when the youngsters of the village go to the fields to gather a special kind of pink flower known as ocul boului, which literally means ox's eye, but in English it's also known as China Aster. On the morning of the ceremony, the young girls and boys of the village get together to prepare the flower crown. Then together they march through the streets dressed in traditional clothes and sing folk songs. The procession is led by 2 horsemen, and it's usually accompanied by folk musicians and people dressed in various costumes as well, and of course another horseman dragging a cartwheel decorated with dolls representing a wedding procession. In some villages they give some alcohol to the ox, which makes it a bit agitated, and the unmarried girl has to catch it and tame it, because nothing says being an Eastern European girl more than having to deal with drunk horny males. To be honest, it's not the most animal-friendly tradition we have around here, but it's still an interesting one, and it's amazing how it managed to stay alive even to this day. Some of the most iconic celebrations in Eastern Orthodox countries are related to Epiphany, and that is true for Romania as well. In my previous videos I already talked about the traditions of men jumping into the icy water to fetch a cross, or women putting basil under their pillows to dream about their future husbands. But I managed to find another interesting one. In the small village of Kintelnik, on the day before Epiphany, a priest walks around the village with holy water and blessed basil. At each home, the host waits for them holding a candle at the entrance to invite the priest in, who then blesses the house with the use of the basil and the holy water. After that, the inhabitants of the house need to line up by age and kiss the cross. After the priest is done blessing each house, a group of men called huzi, which means hideous people, will visit each house, wearing ugly masks, dressed as old men, hags, brides, grooms, doctors, dogs, bears, and various fictional characters, or some just dip their faces in flour or soup. They ask the hosts permission to allow them to enter, then they sing songs in order to scare away the evil spirits, which is rewarded with sweets and drinks. If the family has an unmarried girl, one of them pretends to marry her. Or if there's a very old person in the house, a masked man will pretend to be Death, who came to take them to the afterlife.
NANI?! お前はもう死んでいる。
Like many other traditions in Orthodox countries, this one is also an interesting combination of Christian and pagan practices, and although it is unique to a very specific region, it is definitely worth keeping alive. In Sibiu County, there's a tradition named Buzduganul de la Seceriș, meaning the Mace of Harvest, similar to Cununa Secerișului in Cluj and Bistrița counties, meaning the Wreath of Harvest, celebrated in July. There's usually a host selected for this event who provides the scene for the custom. And on the morning of this day, the people of the village meet up at the center of the village and march to the host's fields, singing folk songs. On the field, the older generation will teach the younger ones to cut the wreath and bond the sheaf. At the end, the woman will create sheaves in the form of crosses, which will be arranged to form a big mace, wreath, or a crown. They march back to the village, led by 2 little girls who carry the mace, and women line up on the street side to splash the reapers with clean water, symbolizing prosperity, wealth, and health. Though, let's be real, nobody has any of those 3 things in the Balkans.
I have no money!
The crowd will march to the village and have a feast at the host's house, which is usually followed by some folk dance and singing. The final step in this event is bringing the mace to the church, where the locals can pray together for a early autumn. Of course, there are other celebrations related to harvest in various areas of Transylvania, performed by various ethnic groups. For example, in Saxon areas, they host Érntedang Fest, and Hungarians, especially settlers, have the Csép dance, where young girls perform a dance using various harvesting tools. Many cultures around Europe and the Americas have various unique traditions during the Carnival season, but this tradition from Harghita County could be potentially the most intense one, which became a huge part of secular culture. On the last evening of the Carnival season, aka Farsang in Hungarian, a large group gathered together to prepare cabbage rolls and cakes for the main event, after which they drink, sing, dance and party until the morning. The next day, they bid farewell to the Farsang with a symbolic funeral in order to say goodbye to the cheerful weeks. The main character of this event is a human-sized, realistically dressed straw doll, which happens to have a visible dick, just to make sure that people understand that he's a man, and it's usually named Ilyes or Döme. The entire community is disguised as a funeral procession, where they have to mourn the death of the straw doll. At the end, the doll is undressed and set on fire, around which the participants will dance and sing. In some villages, a young man dresses up in a straw ox costume and two merchants pretend to fight over its price. Since they cannot settle on a sum beneficial for both of them, they pretend to kill the ox and burn its skin, meaning that the young man will jump out of the costume and they will throw the straw into the fire. After the ceremony is done, the procession passes through the village to pass out an invitation to the rest of the locals. Then they march together to the place where the final Farsang ball is held. So yeah, Sikh Island is a culturally diverse place with an interesting set of cultural practices and intense people who have the tendency of ending up in global news, causing international uproars and headaches for the rest of us.
Hogy az az orgonosip mellett nevelkedett kajlakucsmasdarú tollas kutya úristen itt a világnak?
But all that aside, we can agree that these people know how to party. Saint John is considered as one of the most important saints in the East Orthodox religion, and there are multiple celebrations throughout the years related to his name. Udato Jónilor is a unique and interesting tradition which is mostly practiced in a village called Tölmöcsél in Sibiu County. On Saint John's Day, which is on the 7th of January, after the religious ceremony in the church is done, the entire village gets together to march towards the river. The main characters of the march are horsemen carrying the national flag, young boys wearing traditional clothes, and a decorated cart pulled by oxen. When they reach the river, every boy named Ion, which is the Romanian version of John, will be metaphorically christened in order to wash away their sins and worries from the previous year. In order to keep their minds off the icy water and the cold, people offer them suica and wine, because of course in Eastern Europe alcohol is the solution for everything. When the main ceremony is done, unsurprisingly, the villagers get together for a party when they can enjoy some folk music and dancing, and of course a few drinks. Amusingly, although this village barely has a population of approximately 1200 people, 200 of them are called Yon or carry a derivation of that name. This custom has been kept alive for centuries, and it has become a very iconic piece of Sibiu County's culture. Transylvania is a beautiful place with some interesting cultural practices, yet most people only see it as the stereotype created by Western media, which reduces this place either to the image of gothic castles with vampires or the shithole where electricity wasn't even invented yet. But when you take a deeper look at our culture, architecture and natural scenery, you might understand why this place is so close to our hearts, and why so many people have been fighting over it throughout history. By showing some of our unique customs, I hope I managed to awaken your interest in the reality of this place and help you see Transylvania for what it is, instead of that weird image created by people who are too lazy to do some research about the cultures they try to capitalize off of. With that said, I want to thank you for taking the time of your day to learn more about our traditions, and if you want to know more about this topic, I advise you to check out some of my other Transylvania related videos. But enough about that. What did you think about these customs? Does your country have anything similar to this? Tell me in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, or the copperhead owl will grate you. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.